Hey, welcome to Lesson 2 in the Diminished Magic series. In this lesson, I'm going to give you some really cool outside sounding riffs that'll work with any minor chord. A lot of times it's just kind of boring to just play the minor scale and that kind of stuff. So I'm going to show you how to get beyond that. So what is so unique about the diminished seventh chord? Well, first of all, there are only 3 diminished seventh chords. Let me show you what I mean. The reason I can say there are only 3 diminished seventh chords is because the same chord repeats every 3 frets up. So by the time you move up 4, that's 4 different diminished chords, but they all have the same note. So here's a C diminished 7th, has a C, the E flat, has a G flat, and an A. But if we move up 3 frets, we have the same notes. They're just in different inversions. You have G flat here instead of here, E flat here instead of here, C and A, you see. Now we move up again, we have the exact same notes, just shifted around. So you can play any diminished chord, wherever you find that diminished 7th chord. You can play it 3 frets higher or lower. The same holds true for playing just little runs. So I can do the same thing all the way up the neck. You see, we have this A, G flat, E flat, C, but when I scoot up here and do it, we have the C, A, G flat, E, but it's the same pattern. So that's why I say that the diminished 7th chord is just kind of magic, because you can take one thing and play it 3 frets up or down, and you've got the exact same notes, just in a different inversion. So you hear this little track playing behind me, and I wanted to just point out something that's pretty cool. One of the other things that's pretty unique about the diminished chord, or the diminished 7th chord, is that it shows up all over the place. When we start talking about dominant 7th chords, and that's just your basic 7th chord, the track you hear in the background is an F7 or an F9. It's just the basic F. But any dominant 7th chord like that, you can add the 9th, which is that note. But you can also begin to alter some of the other notes, like the 9th. You can raise or lower it, and it doesn't change the function of the chord. The chord still basically is the same thing. You just add in some little tension notes. So, for an example, if I play here's the 9 again. If I play sharp 9, it'd be, and so you hear that little tension in there, which gives you sort of the blues sound. But you can also play a flat 9. So altering the 9th or the 5th, which is the C in this case, I can play a sharp 5, and you'll hear that used a little more in jazz than you will blues, but you can still do it. Or you can lower the 5th. And there's your blues note. So I want to then take that principle, what I just explained to you about altering a couple of notes in any 7th chord, and show you something that happens when we switch this to an F7 with a flat 9. Now check out this diminished chord in there. You actually have the C diminished, or E flat, C, this diminished chord that shares 4 names, E flat, C, A, G flat, and it works even with blues here. So, for an example, I can do that little riff I was showing you, and then trickle in just a hybrid of just blues, just your standard just your basic blues scale, but I can also trickle in that G flat, that flat 9, and then work in the whole diminished thing. I'll show you what I'm talking about. So you see, what we have here is a diminished scale or a diminished chord, diminished 7th chord, being played over blues. All you have to know is which note to start it on. In the case of blues like this, you can start on an E flat, which is the 7th note of this F7 chord. So that just gives you a little extra spice with your blues. I think what I'm about to show you is going to blow your mind. Let me give you the quick backstory. When I first started playing, I really didn't have any background in music. I mean, I played football and baseball, and I started playing the guitar, and I was dumber than a brick. I knew nothing about music. So I asked my the band director at our school to help me with some music. He formed a music theory class my senior year, and so I took it, and I learned some basics. So I started drawing lines on notebook paper and filling in the notes and, like putting all the notes of certain chords all across the neck, and started seeing some patterns, some things that were jumping out at me you just couldn't find in the chord books. So in fact, doing that for years is what inspired me to create the tools that you see on guitarcreative.com that are free, by the way, for you to use. But it inspired those tools because it was so much faster than drawing lines. And so after I learned how to do programming and stuff, I thought, well, let me just do that. But anyway, one day I'm thinking to myself, how does Mike Stern, I don't know if you know this guy but he's a great sort of fusion jazz guitar guy, but how does he weave in and out of scale notes like he does? Like a lot of his songs, they're one minor chord, or it's like a minor blues thing, and it'll sit on a minor chord, and he has the most interesting lines, and I'm thinking, how is he doing that? What is he doing? And so I started, I went back to the drawing board, and literally, and I thought, okay, I'm going to start combining the notes of 2 different arpeggios, just see what happens. Kind of form hybrid scales from 2 different chords. And so I knew that, in music, the 5 chord, the dominant 7th chord, it always wants to resolve to the 1. So I started combining things that were the 5 and the 1, because there's a major sort of tendency for the 5 to want to go to 1. So it's like in the key of A, or since we're talking about minor, in the key of A minor, the E7, it wants to go to the A minor. Same thing for major. E7 wants to go to A major if you're in a major key. And so I thought, what if I were to take just the E7 chord, the E7 arpeggio, and superimpose it over the A minor 7 arpeggio. So here's the A minor 7 would be just in this 5th position. Those notes there, that's just the notes of the A minor 7. You can play it like that. You can play it all the different ways of playing, because you just combine the notes that belong to A minor 7. Then the E7, same thing. Those notes. So what if I stuck them together? What would I get? And look what I came up with. This was kind of my aha moment. I started going, wait a minute. This is kind of cool here. So I thought, okay, what if I were to meld the A minor blues scale, which really the only difference here is we add in the D and the blue note. So that's that. And what if I overlaid that with an E9? Instead of just a basic E7, put the 9 in there. And check this out. The scale you see here is the same scale that I was pulling some of these riffs from as I was playing along with that little minor groove in the beginning of this video. So I'm going to give you some ideas how you can create some riffs from this scale, and give you several that you can use, but show you how you can come up with all thousands of possibilities here. So let's jump right into the chord progression. I want to show you how to find that. You're going to go to guitarcreative.com, in the tools menu down to chord progressions. The very first thing you'll see may be a little different from this because I'm constantly adding new tracks. But what you want to do is find the one that's called minor chord pop, and this pop jazz swing thing here. I want to also go to A. I just play a little bit of it for you. And it'll just loop here for these 8 bars. The hybrid scale that I showed you first is shown on the fretboard for the first 4 bars, and the hybrid scale that I just showed you now starts on measure 5. So if you want to just focus on this particular scale, then maybe you can just set the loop start there. Just tap on this measure and tap loop start, and it'll loop these 4 bars. Here's where things get kind of fun. Let's just start right here. I'm just in this 4th position, measures 4 through 8. And you'll notice that between this G sharp and the C is 5 frets. It's a 5 fret stretch. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And you've got 2 notes here, and then you got 2 notes here. And what I like to do is position my hand so that my little fingers can get to these notes pretty easily and reach backwards with my first finger. It's better if you don't try to put your first finger down and then try to reach like that, because you can't. Your hand needs to be positioned like this. All right, that being said, you don't want to just play the scale. That's just boring. So mix it up. Take 2 of the notes, for an example, from the E7 arpeggio, which, remember that is. Take 2 notes from that, which could be this G sharp and this B, and then move up to 2 notes in the A minor. So let me get this track going, and I'm going to show you a few things here. So you see what I'm doing there. The E7 wants to resolve to the A minor. And so by playing notes from both of those chords, even though the G sharp doesn't necessarily fit, it kind of creates some tension. You can hear that. That's kind of that James Bond thing. So you can play those and hang on them, and they're a lot more tension, or you can use those to resolve from the E to the A minor. Now, you'll also notice that the very same set of fingerings here are the same on the next 2 strings down. So you can work some kind of cool little patterns like, which is one of the first things that you saw in the beginning of this video. It's like, so all we're doing is bouncing around from notes in the E7 to notes in the A minor blues scale. So wherever you see this E flat here, that's the blue note. That's also the flat 5 interval in A minor, but it's the blue note in the A minor blues scale. This little E flat to the D to the C, that's what you'll hear a lot of guys play is just this, and it gets old and boring after a while. You know, you can, no matter what you do, you're just limiting yourself when that's all you play. So that's why using this hybrid scale, you can imply E7 to A minor over the A minor chord. You don't have to wait for the chord to change to E7. That's what's pretty cool about this. Now, the next thing I want to show you is how the diminished 7 arpeggio works in here. So check this out. You see on the A, if you start here and you go to the C and the E flat and the F sharp, that's a diminished arpeggio. So you can use the arpeggio and resolve into chord tones. Kind of like this. Or. So let me play around with that a little bit. So now, instead of trying to play the whole thing, you realize that anywhere you find that diminished arpeggio, you can move up and down in 3-fret spacings with just a couple of the notes, like. Let me play around with that a little bit. So that gives you that diminished thing right on over the top of a minor chord. As long as you know where to find the diminished arpeggio, you can use it and play around with it, even just doing chromatic things in between it. But this is where you didn't begin to get creative and you find all these cool little things. So let me address one other thing here, and that is tension and release. And that's something that we've talked about before, but I want to show you some of what's going on here. Let's go back to this G sharp, A, B, and C, and I'll show you. You can start on the C and release to the B, but the B is the minor 9, it's the 9 in the A minor chord. And so when you stop on that and let it hang there, you get that little minor 9 tension chord. Show you what I'm talking about. So all I did was bend up to the C, let it come back to the B, and then played a G, A. So the other thing you can do is just the opposite. I can start on the B and bend up to the C. Same kind of a thing, only now I'm resolving from the B to the C. Now, look at the G sharp and the A. I can start on the G sharp and bend up to the A. Or the other way around. So let me play around with some of that tension, those tension notes, and you can see what's going on here. Okay, so now watch this. You have the B, the C, the F sharp, the G, the D, and the E flat. So you have, this is the 4, and that's the blue note. This is the 6, and that's the 7. This is the 9, and that's the 3. If you want to look at the color key, you can see what those are just by clicking that and opening it up. Doing things like looking at these patterns, you can. So let me play around with that a little bit, let you see what's going on there. There are countless possibilities. You have these these chromatic notes here. Ending on the 6th in a minor key is a pretty cool deal too. You can, which gives you that minor 6 sound, that kind of a thing. Play around with this. I think you're going to have a ball coming up with all kinds of new riffs and possibilities. I showed you several ways you can do it just by bouncing around in between things, that kind of thing. So find all these other little possibilities and just keep in mind you have tension and release. Your ear will then start getting used to what these things sound like, and you'll find some new things. So because we're in A minor, you can kind of get this sense of where all these things are in here, learn your patterns, then switch to, for an example, switch to the C minor, and it'll load that in, and you can see that it just moves everything up here. And it's a different track. So you get the idea. Play around with this, go to another key, and then you'll begin to get really familiar with this little hybrid scale. Hope you have a lot of fun with this. Look forward to seeing you in the next lesson. It should be out about this time next week. And, hit the like, the comments, and the subscribe thing, and you'll get notified when the next lesson is up in this series. Thanks a lot.